So here we go. Let's bring him up. Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Beautiful. Mayor Keith Pekau, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate being on the show today. And man, you're from that fun state of Illinois, huh?
Yeah, we certainly have our difficulties here in Illinois. We had a once beautiful city that's not been going so well the last couple of years.
And I did some studying and research on you, and you're fascinating to me because you come from the entrepreneurial world. Let me first tell everybody you're running for, I believe it's the 6th district of Illinois, correct? In You're from Orland Park right now as a mayor, right?
Correct.
You come from a business background, though. You are, as I look at it, the way our founders envisioned it, the entrepreneurs who help run a country because of free market values, understanding people, life, liberty, etc. Can you give us a little kind of a background on where you came from? Because you're also an Air Force veteran as well.
Yes. So aerospace engineering undergrad, went into the Air Force around the time of the Gulf War, just before. And so I have three tours in Iraq. I flew F-15Es. I was a
Wow.
backseater in an F-15E. While I was in the Air Force, while I was in training, I couldn't deploy, so I did a weekend executive program at Duke University. So I have an MBA from Duke. And when I left the Air Force, I transitioned into the civilian world and was a consultant for for about 5 years, doing business strategy consulting for some very large firms. Like our clients included Boeing and Nordstrom and some very big firms, but also a lot of private equity firms as well. I decided that that was not where I wanted to be for the rest of my life, so uh, I bought my own business. I bought a tree service, which was 5 employees at the time, and knew nothing about trees when I bought it, but it was local. I wanted to not travel like I did. And I said, hey, it's a business, so we'll run the business, and grew it into a full service tree and landscape business of about 30 employees. And I sold that a couple of years ago.
Wow. So I mean, that is the all-American dream, right? That is controlling your destiny, and I believe that's what America was. That's the values we're rooted in. I mean, really, at the end of the day, right?
It is. And I'll tell you what, after running a small business or owning a small business and seeing all the regulation and everything that comes on you, and obviously I'm fairly well educated, I think I'm reasonably intelligent. And it was very challenging. It's how do you know every federal regulation, every state regulation, every local municipality that we worked in have different rules. And frankly, as a small business, it's like I don't have the resources to keep up with them all. And at the end of the day, adopted a philosophy early on, saying I'm gonna, I've I think I have pretty good common sense, and I think I'm a good person, so I'm gonna do what I think is right and do what I think is fair, and hopefully that's going to keep me in compliance with all of the rules. And if there's something that we miss along the way, we will address it, because there's just absolutely no way to physically go through as a small business owner every single regulation from every single government entity and know it.
Yeah, it reminds me, me being a physician and dealing with stuff we deal with, but also having a practice in a small business. And you go to a seminar and they're like, well, you have to think about this and you have to think about this and this and this. And you're like, when does it end? And I believe that they're using these regulations to suppress business, because ultimately you talk about things like the Great Reset and, being in Illinois, you see this a lot. It is just pile them on until almost it's submission, right?
Yeah, it becomes so much that you can't operate, and you go back to, I mean, if you go back to the Affordable Health Care Act, and when that was put in place, we had health care for our employees
Hmm.
before that, and it was a reasonable for a single individual, I think, and it was an HMO, a Blue Cross Blue Shield HMO, and I think it cost them $100 a month, and it cost us $100 a month. It was actually pretty affordable.
Wow.
The minute that was passed, within a month, we were dropped because we didn't have enough people in our plan, and the Affordable Health Care Act wouldn't allow it. And so we could no longer offer health care to our employees. And we had someone we wanted to employ to bring him on board and find a health care, because he needed health care. So we tried to find a plan through the Affordable Health Care Act, and he was in his mid 50s with just a wife. And for us to get a $6,000 deductible policy was $2,000 a month,
Oh,
for that, as opposed to $200 a month that was before, with a deductible of $300. So it was no it certainly wasn't affordable, but that's small business. And so now
Right.
you can't offer healthcare. So how do you get employees? They're only going to large employers that can offer the healthcare benefits.
Radical difference. And I appreciate you in so many ways. Obviously, thank you for your service, but also jumping in, diving into business. And as anybody who dives into business, you make your mistakes, you dive in. That's what you do. But also, you saw that there were problems, and I think, are you one of the first ones to ever win elected office and become mayor on the first shot?
I don't know. I've never looked at that. I'm sure there have been others that have done that. I mean, certainly we had a president that won that had never run for office before. But yeah, it's rare to go all the way to a mayor's position or governor or something like that, especially if you're not independently wealthy, which I'm not. But in this particular issue, one, I think I ran a good campaign. I think I was a good candidate, but also the former mayor gave me a phenomenal issue in which to run, which the issue was he raised his pay from 40,000 to 150,000. And it really wasn't the pay that was the issue, because most people around here would have said, well, you can earn that as a full-time mayor. It was the fact that his pension would have went from 25 grand to 100 grand a year for just 4 years.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
he would have put 16,000 additional dollars into the system and got 2.1 million back extra over 20 years. I'll tell you what, I think every one of your listeners would take that return guaranteed. It's a guaranteed return, 16 grand for 2.1 million over 20 years.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, most people would take that, but then you also wonder, you see that in Congress now too, and you're running for Congress. It's interesting how these people go in with a very low net worth, and they might make $150,000 a year, but then next thing you know, they're worth 10 million, 100 million, 200 million plus. What gave you the idea, I should say, but what pushed you to make this run for Congress?
So really, it started just like with mayor. I never aspired to be mayor. Never have aspired to be congressman. I didn't aspire to be more than mayor. I really like being mayor. I'm good at it. Done a lot of good work for my town. But I was kind of, it kind of happened the same way I recruit people to run for trustee or run for a position around here, which is my own arguments were used against me. We need good people to step up. We need people with a background like me, not someone who's a lifetime politician, a lifetime Washington insider or beltway person to be running for Congress. What we need are people who have a background like mine, military, small business, a mayor, because I understand the impact these laws have on our residents and have on local government. And that, combined with the fact that the way the district was redrawn, it became winnable. It's a neutral seat. It may be +1 Democrat seat, where there were two congressional districts that were combined into one. And the two congressional districts were both like a +8 Democrat, +10 Democrats. So really hard to win. The new district, combining them, is very neutral, which makes it a winnable seat in Illinois. They gerrymandered everything so much, but they kind of, I think they sliced the bread a little too thin, and they gave the Republicans a chance to win 3 or 4 seats that otherwise we weren't thinking they could. But when looking at the entire district, felt like that I was the right candidate based on being the mayor of the biggest town in the candidate that can actually take out 2 radical left congressmen that are linked with Nancy Pelosi to win back the House, and we need good people to do it. So that's why I ran. I think I can do a good job, and it's not a lifelong ambition, and I certainly won't be there for life. And to your point of the stocks, I had that question asked to me last night in an event about, should we not allow congressmen to trade stocks? I said, we're citizens like everyone else. They should be allowed to trade stocks. I mean, they don't get paid a ton of money. They maintain 2 different residences. I said, what you should do is scrutinize. And I can tell you that just running for office, I had to list every stock, every mutual fund, everything. So they have that information. If you see extraordinary gains, then those people that you're talking about that become millionaires that weren't, those people should be investigated, not the average congressman, because most congressmen, that does not happen. It's, but it's a small few percent, 5-10% that happens to. Those are the ones that they should be investigating and getting out of Congress if they're doing things unethically.
No, 100%. We'll dive more into the congressional part. I wanted to bring up something very, very fascinating, which is, again, I feel like you're an anomaly, but in a good way, in the fact that we obviously have a Congress, we have a government who spends far too much money. We break the credit card every year. When you're mayor, and you did this in 1 year, and I think I have to attest this to you as a smart business individual and a smart person. You save so much money in your local area. You actually, what did I read correctly? Like 50 million or something like that. You actually ended up saving a tremendous amount of debt, paying it off. Your area must be very happy with you, sir.
So it wasn't 1 year; it was one term.
Okay.
So it was over a 4 year period. What I walked into was something I thought we were relatively fiscally stable, and we're a pretty well off village. So, but we had a high debt. We had 112 million dollars of debt. In '98, we had like 13 million, and so
Oh wow.
in that 18-year period, it had gone up a lot, and we had very little to show for it that you could actually see. And what it really was, it was some pet projects that a lot of money was thrown at. And what I also learned once I got into office was what a state of disrepair our roads were and our parks were, and things were way behind because they were diverting money away from that to these pet projects. The other thing that we saw is we try to keep a 30% reserve balance, and we had that, but we were projected in 2023. So this was in 2017 and 2023. So next year to have a negative reserve balance to eat up all our reserves. They had known this since 2012 and had done nothing to take action. Clearly, action needed to be taken. So what we did is we took 14% out of our operating budget. We cut 10% of our workforce. We also paid off $52 million of our debt. And so we did that over 4 years. At the same time, we doubled our investment in roads and in parks, and changed how we're doing our parks in particular, because we have 66 parks and we were fixing one every 2 years, which obviously that doesn't exactly work. So we took a different approach to how we fix them. We actually identify what's in the worst condition, and we've gotten into maybe 30 parks in the last 2 years because we're only fixing the things that need to be fixed instead of redoing the whole thing when it doesn't need to happen. And but because we took all that debt off, because we took all of those, reduced those operating expenses, we were able to put more money into our roads and parks, and we kind of have a 5 year plan to get caught up into more of a normal cycle. And that can all be done. It's really just common sense and fiscal responsibility, just like you would operate your own budget, or for people who get in financial difficulty, what a financial manager would tell them to do is to prioritize and do the important things first. And that's really what we did.
You're gonna have to be careful when you get to Congress. They're gonna want you to run for president with those kinds of numbers.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty big undertaking. I think there's a lot more to it than just having good ideas, because there's a lot of people with good ideas.
100%. So you're running for Congress. You have a lot of support behind you, which is great to see. Man, going into Congress right now, obviously this thing, I hate to use the word train wreck, but every day is something completely different, and we're in a bit of a mess. What is the biggest things you want to take right now, if winning and going to Congress, that you would want to undertake at that federal level?
So obviously, it's a little bit different. And mayor, you have a board of seven. I do, and then you're one person. You're the executive, right? So now you're going into a body of 435, where you really need to try and influence people. And I hope what I can bring to the table, because one thing I can tell you as mayor, I'm a Republican mayor. There's a lot of mostly Democratic mayors around me, and we usually agree on the issues because we all want the same things: lower taxes, services for our residents, a safe community, economic development. And normally on all these issues, the solutions are fairly obvious. And what stands in the way of implementing solutions are when people have political agendas. If they're really just worried about solving the problem for the people, they can be solved. And we may have different ideas on how to solve them, right? But at the end of the day, if you get in the room with the idea of you want to solve the problem, I think we can come to solutions. And you may not get everything in your idea through, but you can get a lot of it and you get good work done. And to me, and everyone's heard the 80-20 rule, if we can get 80% of what we want done, and there's 20% that's left undone, that's going to be good for the American people. And I think on most of these issues, that's the other thing that happens, I think, in Congress. You get both sides, Democrats and Republicans, they put themselves off in a corner, and they say, well, they take the extreme positions to motivate their bases, and then they don't meet in the middle and solve the problem. And I'm hoping that there's 65, 75 new congressmen, and I'm hoping that most of them think like I do, and they want to get together and solve the problems. Because I think if we go in with that mindset, we can get things done. And I realize 435 people, you may not be able to do that, but the only way it changes and starts getting like that is to start changing it. And that's what I hope I can bring to that. Because I believe that many of these issues, even the most polarizing issues, the majority of Americans, 75, 80%, agree on 75 or 80% of whatever that issue is. So let's do that and not worry about the fringes of it.
I would agree. I'll be honest with you. I've interviewed and had on quite a few people who either are running for Congress or had run and are in now. And just talking to you, you are probably one of the more sane voices that I've ever heard. It's fascinating to me because even people who are running who've never been in the limelight before, and there is a limelight to this. You can hear the PR answers coming out. You can hear the bullet points coming out. You can hear the marketing. And you're probably the first one I've talked to who you're just a good guy with a family who wants things to run better. You know how a business works and you have some solutions. How many people tell you that?
I hear that a lot. That they like the fact that I have solutions and I communicate. Of course, I get the other side of it too because I ran as a Republican. I get labeled as an extremist, and because of our position on COVID, that we don't support mandates. You're an extremist. You're killing people. You're hearing all that. That's just device. I'm not the extremist. It's people telling me that my family should die. You're the extremist. You're the people that have a problem. At the end of the day, yeah, I am very opinionated. I have very strong beliefs, but ultimately, most of these problems are solvable. We know what the problems are. We just need to sit down and solve them. And you're not going to get everything you want. In business, you don't get everything you want, but you look for win-win solutions in business because when you're negotiating with someone, if you hold them over the barrel and you win this time, you'll never do business with them again. So in business, people tend to try and find those win-win situations because they know that if both their businesses do better, they grow together. And so you don't have to get everything you want. And I think if you put that mindset into government, we just get better government. And that's the problem. We don't do that. We get people in government that want to just shower money that they don't care about because it's not theirs on other people so that they can stay in power. That's
Yeah.
wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong for. That's why most at the local level, I think government tends to work because you really do have a budget you have to live within, and if you don't, your people suffer directly. We have towns around here that can't afford to pay their police officers because of decisions like that were made, right? So I think if you keep that in mind and you try and do what's right for the people, not everyone's going to agree with every decision you make, and my wife doesn't agree with every decision I make, right? But I've had people that they disagreed with me in one issue in 5 years, and now they hate me because one issue I voted different than that person has a problem, right? If you're because you're not going to you don't get everything you want in life, and you don't always agree on everything. But if we agree most of the time, that's good. I think the other thing in politics, I can work with people that I disagree with 90% of the time if I can trust them and they're honest with me. Because when we do find agreement, I know we'll be able to get something done. But I have people that agree with me 80 or 90% of the time that I can't work with because you can't trust what they tell you. You never know whether they really believe you or they're going to backstab you. So to me, it's all about trust, honesty, and just solving the problems for the people.
You're talking a whole lot of sanity. This is really good stuff to hear. As you go forward this year with this election, I think one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing at this point going into this election, is election integrity. I do believe that people are very hesitant this year. I think people are going to vote, but I think people are hesitant. Is that something that you're concerned about in your area, concerned about overall? Like, where are you on that issue?
Well, so election integrity is critical, right? We want people to believe, we have to believe in our elections or else we have problems. Either side of the aisle, you're going to have problems. And I do get this question a lot. And I think this is an area I think we all agree. We want one person, one vote, and we want it to be a legal person voting, and we want people to have access to voting. I don't think anyone disagrees with any of that. Then there's two extremes of that position. One is we're going to let everyone vote. Anyone can show up. We're going to let them vote. We're not going to track it. We're not going to do anything. And there are people we know that believe that. There are other people that, oh well, you have to be. It's almost, you have to be fingerprinted. You have to have someone identify who you are. Okay, those are extreme positions. The reason why we have laws in all these different states, they're all different. They're all laboratories. Every state, right, of what works best. And there's some states that do it much better than other states. So we should learn from those states. But the legislators on both sides and with those differing opinions get together and they come up with rules that make it so that it's hard. There's fraud in every election.
Yep.
Because people do bad things. It's just, you can't not have it because there's people involved, and there will be people that are nefarious that do things wrong. The overwhelming majority of the people don't do that. They want fair elections. So you're trying to do everything you can and agree on both sides. What are the things that we have to put in place to make sure that our elections have integrity? We know that 80% of the country agrees with voter ID laws, for example, right? But we don't have them in most states, but some states do. Here in Illinois, we have mail-in ballots, and there was a check and balance system to make sure that you had to ask for it, you had to sign your signature, you check your signature, you get it back. So there was a very expansive check and balance system, which made it harder to defraud that system. Well, what happened in the last election is, by executive order, not by legislative action or discussion, but by executive order, we mailed ballots applications to everybody. Now that you've just broken that chain of the ways that we have to make sure there's integrity, and now things get out of control. Then you have boxes where people can go stuff them all in a box and then collect them at one time, right? So all of these things that weren't really agreed upon. So I think when one person puts those rules in, then you start to lose some of that, and that's where people lose trust, is when rules are just made at the last second that change the rules. And so I think it's very important that whatever election laws states, counties, municipalities have, that it's done legislatively and through discussion, open and in the public. So you come up with a way that people feel. It's incredibly important that people are confident in our elections. And this goes back, that I can remember in my lifetime. It goes back to the Gore-Bush elections. It goes to the Trump election. It goes to the Biden election. I mean, it goes to the first Trump election. Oh, that's not legitimate. Then it goes to the last election. And all of these things just make people uncertain and untrusting of our election cycle, of our elections. And that's not good. And that's not good for the people who get elected. As someone who's running for office, I want them to believe that I was elected. And also, as someone who's running, I don't want someone to steal an election from me either. So it's really, really important to have those checks and balances in place. And every state, has their own rules, but I think they need to set them legislatively.
Absolutely. No, it's a great point. Before we let you go today, what are one or two things that you have noticed that worked extremely well for you at the level of mayor and your success there, that you think you could fit easily into Congress when you win there? I'm not going to say if you win, when you win there, that even though it's a bigger playing ground, that would be successful in obviously restoring the republic and getting us back on the road we should be on.
I think what I bring to the table is the fact that I have worked with mayors of the other party, right? And being able to just focus on the problems themselves and try and find solutions to those problems. I think there's places where you can find common ground on that. As far as specific policies, I can tell you on the policing side, I'm a little bit biased, but I think we have the finest police department in the state. And even though I'm in Cook County, where crime is running rampant, our crime's the lowest it's been in 27 years. It's because a lot of the proactive policies we've put in place. Some of those things that we've done, we spend more money on investigations than other departments. So we make sure that we really have everything to convict someone who's committed a crime. So that makes it hard for people who want no cash bail and not to prosecute criminals. Makes it hard for them not to do that, right? So we do that, but we also have things that actually, it's a federal program, the Mobile Response Unit, that I think we're the only place in the country maybe that's doing this, and we were able to get, with through a federal grant, hire some mental health professionals, and It's saved lives. It has saved lives. There's no question about it. It's not only potentially saved the actual someone losing their life, but also it's kept people from getting into a criminal system that they probably never belonged in, because we're able to bring these mental health professionals into, not if it's a nonviolent situation, to get involved. And instead of our officers having to commit someone and spend 5 hours on paperwork, our officers get to leave the scene, go back to work, and these mental health professionals take over and get these people the help they need. This was a federal program instituted under the Trump administration, which has reduced our committals by 35% and has now been rolled out to 5 neighboring towns. That's something that could be done throughout the country, because we know that that mental health and crime are so interconnected. And if that reduces committals by 35% throughout the country, that's going to decrease jail time. It's going to decrease jail time. It's going to decrease everything. And look at it, just that. And that's something the federal government could do and could implement. So there's a specific program that's worked here that could work elsewhere.
That's amazing. I am very impressed with your work in that department. And obviously, unfortunately, one of the first things people think of is, Illinois, they think of Chicago, they think of crime being through the roof. And numbers alone, you prove that you're able to handle that. That's impressive.
And it is through the roof in Chicago and Cook County, fortunately, and we're under a lot of pressure, but we've been able to do something. And one of the reasons, aside from that, is that we do catch criminals. So guess what? When you catch them, they don't want to come back. And the other thing that we do that's different is we require our businesses to cooperate with the police. So if they don't sign a complaint when they've had something stolen from them, we actually fine them. And you only have to do that once or twice, and then they file complaints, because we don't want them inviting criminals to come to town and know that they can just steal from them whenever they feel like it.
Man, you talk so much sense. I don't know what to do with this. I joke, but I'm serious. It is very refreshing to hear someone like yourself, especially with the background you have, to be discussing things the way you discuss. And I really believe that a lot of running for office has become a marketing campaign, and I don't like that. And you're one of the first ones, if not the first, to just come at it from a standpoint of, this is what we need to do, this is what we could do, this is what we've done, and this is how we can solve problems. And that is how the world works. So I appreciate you, sir. Where can everyone find more about you?
Everyone can go to KeithPekau.com. So KeithPekau.com. And that has everything about me and about my campaign. You can donate, all of that is right there.
Awesome. In the 6th Congressional District of Illinois. And I think we have a good one here, folks. I think, Keith, you're gonna go win, and we can clean up some areas. And Illinois, not that I want blue or red, because I would love to see the labels go away, but maybe we can make it a more conservative, constitutional area with you're the rising star, as they say.
Well, that would be great if we did. And I think the secret to my success, one, people are open to hear the truth, but for me, it's just tell the truth. Say what you believe, back up your positions with facts. And the beautiful thing about telling the truth and saying what you believe and backing your position with facts is you can remember what you said. And I think we get better government when we do that.
I 100% agree, sir. I appreciate you. I appreciate your service, what you've done in business. Obviously, your mayoral office holding has been brilliant, and I wish the best for you. And you're going to help us restore this republic. So thank you for everything, sir. Appreciate having you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. Good luck, and let us know if you need anything. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. So he is amazing. I do really love his work. Gosh, so good. Does anyone else notice when listening to him the difference between how he is talking versus how many other congressional candidates talk? I believe you are looking at someone very different there. And hey, I'll admit, you won't know until the person gets put in. But sometimes you just can tell. And some people, remember, Air Force veteran, business owner, mayor, he's just a problem solver. And that is the most important thing. So Folks, I appreciate all of you today. I'm going to run. I'm going to go do some work on the tooth and go get some therapies done. I thank all of you. I appreciate all of you. I hope this brought value to you. We have more congressional candidates coming. And as always, I want you to do me a favor. Love, help, and serve. When you do that, we will make a better country. We will make a better world. Dr. Jason Dean, Brave TV. Everybody have an amazing Thursday. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.